Hi everyone, it's Lindy on here from Pink Whisper Designs. Today we're going to be making this mini slimline graduation card. So let's go ahead and get started. For paper, I'll be using the Strathmore Bristol Smooth cardstock. This is a 9 by 12 pad. So I need this paper cut 3 inches by 12 inches. So by using this pad, I get a 12-inch piece of paper here. You could certainly use your 12 by 12 papers as well. So this is 3 inches by 12 inches, and I'm going to score it at the 6-inch mark. And this will create a mini slimline top folding card. So the finished card will measure 3 inches by 6 inches. So now I'm going to take that fourth largest die because I want to leave a little border around the edges of my card, and these are the rectangle A2 double stitch dies. So I'm going to die cut 2 of these. We're going to create the sky and the grassy borders for our card. So I'll go ahead and run those through my Spellbinders Platinum 6 die cutting machine. And now one will be again for the sky, and this one here I'm going to cut in 2 pieces for the grassy border. I'm just trying to figure out about what height I need that first grassy border to be. So I'm just going to mark that with my pencil. And then I'll just take my scissors and just kind of cut a little bit of a rolling hill here, a little bit of a rolling grassy border here. And then I'll take that second piece and flip it around so that I have that stitched edge right along the bottom, and I'll just cut a second one here. So that'll fill the entire front of the card there, leaving a little border all the way around. So now I've got my We Are Memory Keeper silicone mat. I'm going to place that paper down. And then I've got the broad tip brush from the Tim Holtz water brush collection. And I'm using the Byron Bay and the Blue Bottle. These are from the Jane Davenport Mermaid Marker collection. And these are water-based markers. So the barrel is filled with that color. And you can see there, it says push. So if you want more ink to come out, you just press there and it will release more ink. So you can release as much or as little ink as you need here. So I'm going to start off with that darker blue color and just apply that all towards the bottom. And then I'll come in with that second color and apply that up towards the top. And then I did decide to add the Deep Sea, which is a little bit more of a purpley blue color, and I'm adding that along the bottom edge here. So I'll take that broad brush and I'll just squeeze it a little bit to get a little bit of the water flowing here, and then I'll just sweep that back and forth across this panel. And I'm just blending these inks together. This is really simple and easy to do. And I'm just going to keep going over it. I want plenty of water here so that I can move this around. And I'll just keep blending that out till I like the way that looks. Once that's all set, I can set that aside to dry. Now I did the same thing here for the grassy border. I used seaweed and siren, the 2 green colors. So I used a lighter green and a darker green, and I did the exact same thing. And now what I'm going to do here is take that darker color of green, that siren green. I'm going to put some on my silicone mat, spritz it with a little bit of water, and then I'm going to spatter these 2 grassy borders. And that's just going to add a little bit more texture here to these borders. So these Jane Davenport markers are really nice to create these backgrounds with, but we're also going to be coloring with them as well. And I'll show you that here in a second. So I did go ahead and heat set those, and I'll set those aside. Now I'm going back to my sky, and I'm using the Shimmer Spritz in the Frost. And I will list all these products for you down below. And I'm just kind of going up above the paper about 8 or 10 inches, and I'm giving that a nice spritz, and that's going to give that beautiful shimmer across that sky. Now for stamps here, I'm using the His and Hers Flying High set, and I'm going to grab that cloud. And from the graduation set, I'm going to grab the giraffe, and then later we'll be using a couple of those sentiments. And again, those are both from Art Impressions. So I've gone ahead and placed those images in my Mini Misty. I'm inking those up with the VersaFine Onyx Black ink, and I'll just quickly stamp those. So I did want to stamp about 4 of the clouds. So I'm going to stamp those a couple more times here. Now going to the Tim Holtz water brush in the detailer tip this time, and my markers, my Jane Davenport Mermaid Markers, and here I'm using the Reef and the Pirate's Gold, which is kind of a brown and a yellowy gold color. So I wanted to show you a couple different things here you could do. You can just scribble some of that ink onto your glass media mat or your silicone mat, and then use your water brush and pick up that color. So this will allow you to have a little bit more control over how much color goes on the cardstock here. So using that detailer tip brush, I can get into all those little areas here. So the second way that you can use this is to just grab the pen and go right to your cardstock. And you want to just place that ink down, and then here I'm placing it on each side of the giraffe, and then I'm just going to pull that in towards the middle here. And I'm using the water brush to do my blending here. Now you do want to test the marker before you go to your image, just to make sure the flow of ink is really good. You don't want too much, especially in some of these detailed areas here. So I'm cleaning off the water brush, and then I'm just going to go ahead and blend this out. And I'm adding a little bit of shadow here. Again, just using that marker directly onto the paper, and then I'll just blend that a little bit more. Now you can see I did go over all the little spots on the giraffe. I'm not worried about that because I'm going to be coming in with a darker color here. So now I'm going to do my clouds with the Byron Bay. I'm letting the giraffe dry at this point. I want to let that dry so that when we add our second color, it won't bleed into that first color. So with this Byron Bay color, I'm going to do the clouds, and I just want them to be very random looking. So I'm just going to add a little color at the bottom and then kind of blend that around. And I'm going to do each one a little bit differently. And here, to control the color even a little bit more, I'm just adding a couple little dots of color and then blending that out. You could always come back in with more color if you need to here. So I'll just continue coloring in those clouds the exact same way. So now that those are all set, I'm just checking here, and that giraffe is still a little bit damp. Now I could certainly heat set it, but I think I'll color in that little bird with the blue bottle while I'm waiting for that to dry. So I'm going to add a little bit of color here to this little bird. And here I'm applying the ink to my silicone mat, and then I'm picking it up with the water brush. So again, you can kind of mix and match the way you color these in, depending on how large the image is and how much detail there is. So now I'm going back to the giraffe, and I'm going to use the Reef color, which is that kind of chocolatey brown color. And here again, I'm going to apply my color to the mat and then bring it over to the giraffe. And what I want to do here is add some shadows to all those little spots. So I'm going to start off with adding a little bit of color, and then I can come back in, so I can let that dry a little bit and then come back in with more color. So you'll see me kind of going back to some of those spots and just adding more shading as I go along. You could always heat set in between and then come back with more shading. So I'll just continue filling in all those little areas there. And if you get too much ink, again, you can just remove it. Just grab the color with your water brush and scribble it onto some scrap paper. So you can easily remove color. You can also blot up a little bit of color with a paper towel if you need to. So it's pretty forgiving. So here you'll see me going back in again to add even more shading. So you can just let it dry a little bit and then come back in as many times as you want to get that shading that you need. And here I'm not doing a lot of blending. I'm just kind of letting that ink just sort of absorb into those little spotted areas there. So next I'm going to grab the color Beach, which is kind of a peachy tone. I'm going to add a little bit in the ears there, but I did decide that was just too light. So I'm going to come in with the Starfish, which is a really pretty pink color. And I'm going to add that. I'm going to place it on my mat and just pick up a little tiny bit of color here. And I just keep blotting off my brush and removing some of that color because I just want a little hint of the pink there. And then I'm using Deep Sea, which again is that kind of purpley blue color. And I'm adding a little bit of color to that graduation cap. And then I'm going back to that reef color and just adding a little bit more of a shadow right along the back here of my little giraffe. So now that that's all colored in, I'm going to use my detail scissors and I'll go ahead and cut these out. And I'm going to leave a little bit of a white border all the way around. So I've got my clouds and my giraffe all set. So let's go ahead and put the card together. So I'm using my ATG 700. This is a permanent tape dispenser, and I want plenty of tape on here because that paper did get very wet. So I want to make sure that it lays nice and flat on my card. So I'm just going to leave an equal distance on the top and the two sides, and then I'll add my grassy border, again leaving that same distance around the edges there. And that's going to give that nice continuous stitch border all the way around here. For the lower part of the grass, I'm going to just pop that up just to add a little bit more dimension here. And I'm using the Scotch foam mounting tape to do that. So now I'll just lay out my images here. So I want my little giraffe to be poking up through the clouds. So I'm going to place some clouds behind him and in front of him. But I will be popping him up, so I've placed some Scotch foam mounting tape around the back. And then for the clouds, I'm just going to, again, just kind of try to figure out about where the placement is going to be of these little clouds. Again, I want his little head to be popping up through the clouds here. So once I've determined that layout, I can go ahead and start attaching all these pieces. So I'll glue down the two clouds. I'm using my Nuvo Deluxe adhesive. So I'll glue those down flat in the back here, and then we'll be popping up the ones in the front. I'm just placing some acrylic blocks on there just to let those dry. And now I can go ahead and attach my little giraffe. And then for the clouds, I'll use glue on part of it and then pop up the other side just so it lays nice and flat against that giraffe. So I'll put the foam mounting tape on one side and glue on the other side there and just position those in place. And I'll do the same thing for this other one here as well. So I did decide to add a sentiment, and I could have done this first, but I wasn't exactly sure where I wanted that to be. So I'm going back to that graduation set, and I'm grabbing that sentiment that says aim high. I'm going to place that up at the top of my card. So I've placed it back in the Mini Misty stamp positioner, and I'm going to center that at the top of the card here. And then I'll go ahead and stamp that. I'm just prepping that stamp because I have not used it before. So I'm just rubbing it with my hand just to take off any of that film on the top of the stamp. So I'll get a nice crisp image here. So once that was all set, I decided to grab that second sentiment, which says the sky's the limit, for the inside of my card. So I'm just opening up that card, and then I've centered that sentiment, and I'm going to go ahead and stamp that as well. And it didn't stamp clearly the first time because I hadn't prepped it. So I'm just prepping that with my fingers again and then stamping it a second time. I did get some black ink on there, so I'm using my Mono sand eraser to erase that. And then I noticed as I moved my hand along here, I kept getting more black. So, but I did use the sand eraser and it will take that ink right off. Now I wanted to add just a few little stars, and I've got these really pretty iridescent stars. And these are from the Martha Stewart collection of hearts and stars. So I've got my Marvy Jewel Picker and my Nuvo Deluxe Adhesive, and I'm again just going to grab 3 of these little stars. And I'll just place 3 of those right up above here, above these clouds. And that's just going to add a little bit more sparkle. And that Marvy Jewel Picker has 2 ends. One is for some larger embellishments, and this end here is for these tiny little ones. And that glue will dry clear, so don't worry about if it shows, it will dry crystal clear. Let's take a closer look at that sparkly sky and the little sparkle we get from those stars as well. I just think this is a cute little graduation card for a boy or a girl, and we have lots of texture there in that grassy border as well. So I hope you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please hit the like button and subscribe. And don't forget to visit me at pinkwhisperdesigns.com. And also hit that notification bell so you don't miss a single video. As always, thank you so much and have a great day. Bye-bye.